I don't know what time you're going to be hearing this podcast, but it's evergreen, meaning that no matter what time you listen to it, it's going to be relevant. But we happen to be recording it right around the time that spring has happened in 2026. And right around this time of the year, there's two times a year when people really start thinking about, getting in shape. One is beginning of the year, and the second part is right during the spring, right before the summer during travel. So I thought it would be a great idea to have Mackenzie Jacobs stop by. She's a certified personal trainer and online nutrition coach, and the brain, and as she says, biceps behind more confident fitness coaching. And she says she's really obsessed with helping people build sustainable habits that actually stick so they can feel stronger and more capable. And I am so glad to have you here, Mackenzie. Welcome to the V.I.B.E Living Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and speaking with your audience, get everyone feeling good, strong, confident for upcoming summer and 2026 as a whole.
Yep, that's right. Well, as we said, people are probably thinking about getting in shape, and there's so much information that's out there. There's so many different methods and all kinds of different advice out there. But you're here today to help dispel some of the myths that are out there when it comes to getting fit. And of course, as always, we like to tailor our information to women 40 plus. So taking that into consideration, what is your advice for us? First of all, what are the myths? What are the things that we're hearing that we should be doing that maybe we really shouldn't be doing if our goal is to reduce inches and release weight?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love talking about this topic in general. I actually teach group classes as well. And a lot of my demographic there, a lot of the members are women who are peri or menopausal. And so a lot of these fun facts that I like to give every single week are catered towards that demographic and just helping them feel good in their bodies and have longevity and quality of life. So the 5 that I want to hit on today, some of these are probably going to ruffle little feathers, but these are the 5 that I have narrowed down. There are more, unfortunately. Fortunately and fortunately, social media has made information so accessible, but with that comes a lot of disinformation and misinformation. And so you really have to make sure that you do your due diligence in who you're following and listening advice from. And there are bad characters out there, but there's also really good ones. So I'm happy to talk through some of the biggest ones that I've narrowed down, and I can just dive into them if you'd like.
Yes, let's dive in. Take into consideration this. I am way over 40. I'll be 69 in June. So you might have to give me some separate tips at the end of this. I know this is mostly for my demographic of 45 to 55, but I want to ask you some questions about the 60-somethings too when we get done.
Yeah. The great thing is these actually apply to all ages. And so that's what I love. Yeah, no, these tips and these myth busters are going to be applicable to everyone and setting everyone up for success, whether you're male, female, whether you're 22 or 62. So that's what I love about it. But obviously, depending on your goals, that's when things kind of change and have a little bit more nuance. But so let's just dive through. I'll list off the 5 and then we can dive deeper into each one if we want to do that.
No problem.
All right. So number 1 is strength training makes you bulky. So that is a huge myth. Number 2 is going to be creatine is just for men and bodybuilders. Number 3, cardio is the best way to lose body fat. Number 4, more is better. And number 5, eating 1,200 calories a day will get me to my dream body. So these are the 5 that we're going to focus in on, and we can start with number 1. Okay. So strength training makes you bulky. The amount of times I have heard this from my female clients, my female group fitness members, and unfortunately it's just wrong. So a lot of times what people fear is, let's say that they're not at their ideal body composition or their ideal weight. And they think, okay, I'm going to lift these weights and I'm going to look like a sheet hulk, right? I'm going to be bulky. I'm going to look like those bodybuilders. And that's maybe not the aesthetic they're going for. At the end of the day, strength training is the best thing you can do for longevity. It is your longevity muscle. So building muscle will help with cognition, dementia. It'll help with hormones. It'll help with blood sugar regulation. It helps with every single aspect of the health spectrum. And a lot of times what people get focused on is the aesthetic piece of it. And the good news is not only does it help with all of those quality of life markers, but it also gets you to that dream body. So a lot of times people think, oh, I'm just going to to add bulk to my fat. But ultimately, when you're adding muscle to your body, you become leaner. So even if you gained 2 pounds on the scale, but it was pure muscle, your body fat percentage actually dropped. So there's more than one way to get lean. And that's the amazing thing about muscle.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I do know a little bit about because I do strength training. In fact, right now I'm doing restricted blood flow training right now.
Okay.
Help with producing the human growth hormone. But it's interesting. I want to tell people right now because I have a little bit of experience with this, a lot of experience with it, is that now if building muscle and if you want to get into bodybuilding and you're over 40 and that is your goal, then there's a special training and a special diet, special weights, and all that has to be designed for it. It's not just about lifting weights. A lot of it has to do with what you're eating to build the bulking muscle because lots of protein, and I'm not saying you have to go out and eat steaks, not at all, but lots of protein is going to help build the muscle. But the other thing that I think sometimes people don't realize, and I'm glad you mentioned that, we're going to cover that in a second, but the whole less is more thing, because it's not like you're going to do the strength training every single day. And also for women over 40, the working and going hard, like, okay, I'm going to do strength training, I'm going to be in there for an hour.
Yeah.
Give you the opposite results because of the issues around cortisol and how it raises and actually ends up thickening you. And I love that you said the thing about the muscle because muscle does weigh a little bit. So you're working out, you're looking great, and you get on the scale and you're like, oh my God, I gained 2 pounds. But it's really not so much about what's on the scale. You're going to take a look at the inches. The inches really tell the story. Is that right?
Absolutely. My favorite way to measure progress and success with my clients, progress photos. I think progress photos are outstanding. I love the waist measurement circumference. And I'm going to look at their energy. I'm going to look at their mood. I'm going to look at their hair and nail health. I'm going to look at their strength gains. And those are amazing things to focus on because a lot of times people are so focused here on weight and the scale that they don't see all these other amazing things happen. What you focus on is what you see. So sometimes I have to shift their focus to these other things. And like you mentioned, I wish honestly building muscle was that easy where I could go to the gym a couple hours a week and I just look like a She-Hulk. Trust me, it takes years and dialed in nutrition and specific programming. And a lot of times those people that you see are on supplements on steroids. So it takes a lot to build muscle. And so you're not just going to lift up 10-pound dumbbells, do a couple of bicep curls, and then look like a She-Hulk. It'll actually instead, it'll rev up your metabolism so that you burn more calories at rest, making fat loss easier, which is going to be one of the topics we talk about when we talk about how cardio is actually not the best way to lose fat. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And also you're going to get that toned. I don't love using that word, but you're going to get that toned look that a lot of women specifically are looking for, right? You're going to look compact. You're going to be able to see your muscle. In order to have that look, you have to have the muscle first. So you need to build that muscle.
What would you say there was about muscle memory? For those, like I've always been athletic all my life. I was a dancer for many years.
Okay.
I've experienced something. I stopped dancing at 63 because I just didn't want to be that girl. Did you need to sit down? It's getting a little old, but but I still dance at home and do stuff at home.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, is it possible for me to get back in the same kind of shape I was? Not so much in terms of extensions and things like that, but in terms of how my arms looked and my legs look. Is that still possible? Do we have that kind of muscle memory, or is that just bygone days?
Muscle memory is actually a really fascinating and well-studied thing. And it takes, I want to say the number is a seventh of the amount of effort to maintain muscle as it does to build it. So once you've built that foundation, you have to put in a seventh of the effort that you did to actually build that muscle, which is amazing because I'm sure there's people out there who maybe they're runners. I used to be a former runner, so I understand that you go a couple weeks without running. Let's say you're on vacation or go on a mission trip or whatever, you feel it. You feel like you're back at square one. And with cardiovascular focused training, that is the case. Yes, we get kind of immediate impacts when we aren't consistently training it. With muscle, the amazing thing is once you've built that foundation, it takes a seventh of the effort. So you can maintain that. Yeah.
It's interesting because I started doing my whole weight thing again and working with strengthening my feet and things like that because I have a performance coming up in for Easter of 2026. So I started getting into shape a couple months ago, and I was surprised how strong I was. Now, it wasn't like I stopped working out totally. I walk every day and I do my weight training 3 times a day, but I was surprised how strong I really was when I started working out. And I thought, I wonder if this is what they call muscle memory. That's why I asked you that question.
Absolutely. You're right. You got it. Yeah. That's what that is. And it's a beautiful thing because less effort. I tell people a lot of times you only have to work out and strength train 1 to 2 times a week to see the benefits. A lot of times people think it's 4, 5, 6, even 7 times a week, but no, it's 1 to 2, which is something I
How long? Hours? Minutes?
no, it can be 30 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour. So yeah, like 2 hours of strength training a week.
Okay. All right. So what was the number two?
Number two, creatine is just for men and bodybuilders.
Mm.
So I love talking about creatine. And I have to put a disclaimer, I am not sponsored by any creatine supplements or companies. I just purely love it. And I love advocating for it because it is such a superhero supplement. And it's something that I've gotten my entire family on. And it's something that, especially for my grandmother, for example, it's something that I advocate for. Not only does creatine help with the muscle building process because it allows you to replenish your energy quicker, meaning that you can have better recovery in between your lifts, meaning that you're able to build muscle quicker, lift more in your actual workouts. But it has been shown when paired with SSRIs and compared to SSRIs to help with depression and anxiety. It's been shown to be preventative for dementia, for having impacts on Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. It also is amazing if you have a night of poor sleep or sleep deprivation, anything under 6 hours. You can actually load creatine anywhere between 10 to 20 grams, and you actually are almost minimizing or completely erasing the sleep deprivation. Your brain is able to focus. They had a study that controlled for people who had 8 hours of sleep, people who had like 4 or 5, and the people who had 4 to 5 were on 20 grams of creatine and they performed better on tests than the people who got 8 hours of sleep. So obviously it's not a replacement for good sleep. I always am going to advocate for good sleep. But if, let's say, like life happens and let's say you have young kids or something, you're on call for medical job, absolutely recommend creatine. So it is a superhero supplement and I recommend it to almost anyone. The only people who may want to talk to their doctor if you've had pre-existing kidney issues, but our body naturally makes creatine. So it's naturally occurring. Our liver creates it, our brain creates it. Typically the first 5 grams of creatine our muscles are going to soak up. They're going to be like, yes, I want this creatine. I'm able to recover quicker. You will notice the following week in the gym, the following week, it is rare that something is that fast acting that you're able to get 2 more reps on your lifts or add 2 to 5 pounds pretty immediately on all your lifts. So it's pretty powerful.
That's amazing. I do take a creatine supplement, and it's one of the reasons why I am still talking to you after
Yeah.
whatever kind of hours I've been up. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. And for those of you to paint the picture, I think you remember maybe in your high school science class or junior high school science class, or you can remember that far back, about ATP.
Hmm.
Creatine helps to regenerate the ATP, in other words, the energy. And I can tell a difference, not just the stamina and the energy that I have, but clarity. The brain function seems to be working better. Is that true? Does it impact that as well?
Absolutely. Yep. It helps with cognition, focus. That's one of the main things they have been studying it for. And it is the most studied and efficacious supplement out there. So creatine monohydrate is what you want to get, the monohydrate specifically. But yeah, it is. I mean, if you're on social media, you probably have seen a reel. There's been very well-known accredited doctors talking on like Diary of a CEO podcast about creatine benefits. I have a great link for that. Something that becomes a blocker for creatine, especially for my women, is once again the scale. So whenever you take creatine, basically what's happening is your muscle is going to pull in more water. So people are like, oh my gosh, I gained 3 pounds on the scale. No, what's actually happening is the water is coming into your muscles. So they're going to look fuller and rounder, and it's actually going to be advantageous and it's going to look good. It's not bloat under the skin. Like when we're on our luteal phase of our period, for example, that's bloat where you feel kind of squishy. It just doesn't feel comfortable. It's different. It pulls it into the muscle, so it makes it harder and rounder. So in the muscle versus under the skin. So even if the scale goes up, you're going to have that more compact, harder toned look. So that's something I do have to talk with a lot of my female clients who are so tied to the scale. But that's when, once again,
Yeah,
focus.
Ladies, I kind of feel like after 40 or so, the scale isn't necessarily your friend when it comes to taking a look at wanting to release weight and reduce your inches because they talk about the scale does not lie. Well, the results on the scale is not always truthful in terms of the results that you're trying to achieve. And that is to look better, to look more fit or whatever. But it might add a little bit of pounds because the muscle that you're building, correct? And
Yes.
I love what you said about the water and the creatine. I didn't know that. So that's a good thing to know. Now, what's the average dose that you should take for creatine?
You can take anywhere between 5-20 grams. There's not really an upper limit. It really depends on people's digestibility. Sometimes people get a little bit of digestion issues once they hit like 15 grams, but there's not really an upper limit. But typically, 5 grams is normal for muscle building if that's your main goal. But once again, if you are looking more for the cognitive benefits, that's where I would go 20 plus.
Okay, okay, fantastic. Well, I think that's a great tip. Thank you so much for that. Now, what's number three?
Number 3, cardio is the best way to lose body fat. So this one might ruffle some feathers, but I think a lot of people have the misconception that if they get on the Stairmaster or they do their elliptical or they go running 5 times a week, that's going to be the best way to lose body fat. And something that I do want to distinguish is there's a difference between losing body fat and losing weight. So if I were to cut off your leg, you probably lose 20 pounds pretty immediately. That doesn't mean that's what we want, right? So there's a distinguishing factor between losing body fat and losing weight. When we do not strength train and when we undereat, 40%, up to 40% of the weight we lose is muscle. When you lose muscle, remember that's our longevity tissue and organ. When we lose muscle, your metabolic rate is going to decrease, meaning fat loss is going to be harder. You're going to have more of that skinny fat look. You are going to be crashing your hormones. You're not setting yourself up for success. You may have bone density issues, so leading you to sarcopenia, osteoporosis down the line, being dependent on a wheelchair or others around you. So why I say this is there's a difference between losing weight and losing fat. I assume people, when they come to me and they're like, I want to lose weight, what they really mean is they want to lose body fat, right? So when it comes to body fat, the reason why cardio is not the best tool is because our bodies are adaptive machines. We were built for evolution for staying alive. If you are consistently burning 400, 500 calories during your cardio workouts, over time, doing the same exact workout, your body is going to burn less calories. It's going to adapt to the stressors being placed on it. So let's say you do 30 minutes of stair climber every Monday and you do this same workout for 3 months straight every Monday. Day 1, you may burn around 300, 350 calories doing this workout. By month 3, you're probably burning closer to 150, 175. So your body is actually going to adapt to that calorie burn and it's going to burn less calories throughout your day. So you're going to be fidgeting less. You're going to have less motivation and energy. Your body's going to adapt to survive because it's getting this signal of, oh, our energy needs are changing. I need to adapt to make sure that we can stay alive, right? Because we want to stay alive. So cardio is not the best way because your body's going to end up adapting and we actually don't really burn that many calories from workouts in general. It's about 5%. It's called EAT. It's our exercise activity thermogenesis. It's 5%. So obviously a very small sliver. The great majority of where we burn calories is basal metabolic rate. So that's your metabolism. That's all the physiological functions of blinking, breathing, fidgeting, all those things that blood circulation, heart pumping, it's all those things that we're not even aware happen or that happen. And the best way to increase your basal metabolic rate is to build muscle. So if you
Mm.
build muscle, you're giving yourself the ability to burn calories at rest. When you consistently just do cardio, you're going to have to continue to do more and more and more and more and more to continue to burn the same amount of calories. So instead of doing 30 minutes on the stair step, you're going to have to increase it to an hour. Then eventually you're going to have to increase it to an hour and a half just to burn the same amount of calories because your body adapts. At a certain point, you don't have any more time to give towards working out. You have a life, you have a family, you have, social obligations, you have a job. So your body's going to regulate itself. And so cardio is not the best way to lose fat. The best way to lose fat is to build muscle because you're building your metabolic rate. So you are burning more calories at rest, making it easier to lose fat because you're burning more calories at rest. You're letting the job do itself in the background, right? You're not having to go and burn those calories manually.
Now that makes a lot of sense. Let me ask you something. We're talking about burning fat because this is something that I deal with my clients on all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and that is belly fat.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of misconception about how to burn belly fat. That's not even the right term, but how to lose belly fat. So can you talk about that a little bit?
For sure. Yeah. So that typically falls into what we call spot fat reduction. A lot of times people think that they can do 100 crunches per day and they're going to lose that body fat. No, there's no such thing as being able to choose where you lose body fat. It's just your entire body. So where you gain weight first and where you lose weight last is largely dependent on your genetics and your hormone profile. Okay. So we cannot change that, right? So some people, my friends, for example, some of my friends gain their weight in their hips and their legs first. Me, Jacob's family, we gain it in our stomach and upper body first. That is genetic. You cannot change anything about it. So being honest with yourself of like, okay, this is genetics. This is what I have to work with. This is the hand we have. But what you can do is build a healthy hormone profile so that you do give your body what it needs in order to burn the fat. So, with burning fat in general, you would have to be in a calorie deficit. So, you have your maintenance calories where you maintain your weight, you have calorie surplus where you gain weight, and then you have calorie deficit, which is where you lose weight. So, in order to burn, you have to be in a calorie deficit, and your body is going to choose where that comes from. But being in a calorie deficit over time, your body will lose the body fat. So you have to be in that consistent calorie deficit. Your body's going to choose where it goes first, but eventually over time, you will lose it. A lot of what I hear too, and I listen to a lot of podcasts to educate myself, especially with this, with the belly fat in particular with women and 40s, 50s age range, a lot of that can be hormonal based as well. And so getting help with a specialist for perimenopause, menopause, potentially exploring HRT as a solution are great ways so that your hormone profile, going back to the two things, right? Genetics and hormone profile, optimizing for the hormone profile to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success.
Yes, I've had a lot of experience in working with women with belly fat, and really a lot of it has to do with the cortisol levels and also the nervous system dysregulation, which comes as a result of that, flight or fright response and the cortisol levels being raised, and
Yep.
cortisol thickens you. So it's a different approach when it comes to releasing belly fat. And I know a lot of people think, starving themselves, crunches, all the things that you talked about. I do have a question about the cardio, though.
Yeah.
Is there any other kind of movement that you would recommend that would exercise your heart, but is not as high impact as working on the machines?
Yes, walking. Walking is my number one go-to. Walking is so underrated. It is great for your joints. It is great for blood sugar regulation. It is great for hormone profile. Walking for 5 minutes after eating is amazing for insulin resistance. So it is accessible. It is free. It is easy to do. Um, it is something I highly advocate for. And a lot of us nowadays work at our desks, right? We're little office desk workers and we don't get a lot of movement. So when I'm going back to kind of my little pie chart that I had, so 5% of our calorie burn is from our structured exercise, 60 to 70% is from our basal metabolic rate. 10, 15, all the way up to 30% is from our meat, which is our non-structured exercise. So that's doing chores, walking to the grocery store, walking. So that is a greater percentage than our structured exercise. And a lot of what I see is people killing themselves in the gym and they basically have just like overly done it. And then they're sedentary the rest of the day. They go to their job, they sit for 8 hours on end, which is now the new smoking. They have studies that show sitting for 8 hours plus a day without any breaks in movement, walking is similar to smoking a pack of cigarettes.
Wow.
It's bad.
And it
Yeah.
really is. A lot of people don't realize that we've become such a sedentary society. I heard a statistic the other day that was really kind of scary. They were saying that currently only 29% of men that would qualify to enlist in the army are actually qualified
Oh my goodness.
because of a lot of them have criminal records, drug abuse, and obesity.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. But I think about it. When did I remember years ago, before your time, the presidential fitness program. I don't know when they stopped doing it,
Yep.
but that's when I was a kid, they were doing it, and you would earn badges and things like that. People would play outside. It's just like a totally different world. We have sedentary adults, but we also have sedentary children. They might
Yes.
feel like they're working out because they're doing this and the character that they're controlling is moving and everything, but they're not. And I think it says so much about our culture, and all the more reason. I feel that if we as adults are working out and doing things, we are modeling for our children to go ahead and do that too. Or in my case, my grandchildren.
Yeah.
When I go on a walk or doing that kind of stuff, I bring my grandchildren with me.
I love
Like, Nana, can we stop?
that.
Cool. Because that is my favorite thing. Plus, for me, it helps with our stress level. Getting out in nature, getting around the trees, breathing in fresh air to circulate the blood in my system, fresh red blood cells and all of that. Okay, so we got three. What's number four?
One thing I want to touch on that you mentioned with the kids that
Yes,
has to do
yes.
with that is there is a study that showed that today, in today's age, prisoners get more sunlight than kids. So,
Wow. Yeah,
yeah,
because they can go outside. Oh my gosh, that is so sad. We need some work.
we need some work. Walking, yes, walking, it's community based. You can share it with your family, with your friends, catch up with a friend. Like, it's my absolute favorite. I always recommend people who are eager, right? They're like, if I take cardio away from them, for example, maybe they were overdoing it. And I'm like, I want you to strength train 1 to 2 times a week. And they're like, I feel the itch. What else should I do? I said, walk. I want you to get 8,000 steps per day minimum, 8,000 to 10,000. I want you to do that. And that takes effort, you have to be conscious and intentional about it. But yeah, that is one of my favorite forms of exercise
Yeah,
with them.
I have a route that I know will get me to the 10,000 or really more than that. And I can feel it when I haven't walked. I try to do
Yeah.
it at least 5 times a week, but there are times based upon my schedule I just can't do it. But when that happens, I will go in my backyard in the tennis court and walk around the tennis court a bunch of times. If it's inclement weather, I'll walk around the
Yeah.
house. Just keep moving. The first hour of my day, I am walking for about the first hour I'm walking. I do not sit back down. I walk because I'm driving down my cortisol levels and I just need to move because I've been lying down sedentary for what, 8 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they say that's the best thing you can do is waking up with the sun, getting 20 minutes of direct sunlight while walking. That
Mm.
is the best thing for our body, optimize our hormone profiles, cortisol levels. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Great for your circadian rhythms. Okay,
Yeah.
so number four.
Number four, more is better. And I understand from a society perspective why this feels natural, right? In school, the more you study, the more you do, the more you take on, typically you get better grades, better results. In work, you ask to take on more responsibilities, more work, you put in late hours, you get promoted for it. When it comes to fitness, more a lot of times is just more, and there's no actual progress tied to that. There's a difference between what is tolerable and what is optimal. And a lot of times people push the limits and they do what their body can tolerate, but that doesn't mean that's what's optimal for their body. So a lot of times conversations I have to have with people is actually reducing the amount of times they work out per week or reducing the amount of hit workouts per week, or maybe looking at their stress bucket and saying, maybe for this phase of life, you have all these things in this stress bucket, and this 1 or 2 extra workouts per day or week are adding to the stress bucket and tipping it over. So, more is not always better. Sometimes more is just more. And understanding the difference between tolerable and optimal. Like I said, what I typically recommend for most people is strength training 1 to 3 times per week and walking 8,000 steps a day. If you want to add in some mobility, some yoga, if there's a form of exercise that lights you up inside or connects you with your community, your family, your friends, like tennis, or if you're a hiker, or if you love riding your bikes, I will never not encourage someone to do something that makes them happy. So we can always factor that in, but understanding that more is not always better. And a lot of times it actually puts people in a spot where they tank their hormones, they hard plateau, they're surviving, they're not thriving. And so that's what I try to help self correct.
That makes a lot of sense. And I absolutely know that in so many areas of our life, quite frankly, especially after 40, that more is not necessarily better.
Yeah.
I've learned that in a lot of different areas of my life. I can remember when I first started my company 19 years ago, and I was in my 50s then. And, I was like a mad scientist working the computer,
Hmm.
12, 13, 14 hours a day. But as I got older, it wasn't that I didn't have the energy, but I began to learn when my best time of the day was to work, best time of the day to also work out or to walk or whatever, and best time of the day to just be quiet and do nothing. And that required, in order for me to set aside that quiet time, I had to cut some of the other things. But that was okay because when I went back to it, I got so much more done than I would have if I had been sitting staring at the screen for 8 hours. You work really for like 3 or 4 hours a day. The rest of the time, if you're working for someone, you're staring at the screen, you're visiting with your coworkers, you're talking on the phone, you're not working. So,
Yeah, totally.
yeah. So I'm so glad that you said that because I think we need to kind of reroute and reframe our thinking about the fact that I gotta do this, I gotta do that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not always like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of times too, it's called the recovery trap. People don't understand that your body actually changes when you're still. So your body isn't changing when you're working out. What happens is working out is a stress on the body. So your body receives this stress. And so it's like, okay, I need to recover. When you give it ample time to actually recover, it also not only recovers, so it finishes that loop, but it adapts. It goes to the next level. So you build muscle, you burn body fat, you get better at a skill or a lift. When you do not give it the time to adapt, what you're going to do is you're going to hit your body with a workout. It's going to recover. Next day, you're hitting it with another workout. It's recovering. So it's called the recovery trap. You get stuck in this loop. And I hate to say it, that is just something I see so prevalent in my group workout classes. And a lot of the people there are not where they want to be in terms of their health goals, their body composition. It's because they're stuck in that recovery trap. So you have to get out of that recovery trap, give your body the time it needs to be able to go to that next level and adapt. Our bodies change when we're still, not when we're moving.
I love that. Well, you know what? That makes sense because reality is we as humans need recovery.
Yes.
I find that we bring these habits from the 20s and the 30s into the 40s, and it really does hurt us. And that's the need to be like, go, 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 and feeling guilty about resting. And I mean, I was guilty of it for years. I would come home and not take my heels off or my jacket off until almost until it was time to put the kids into bed and not even think about it.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I know
No.
it feels like, oh, look at Superwoman and everything else, but that whole Superwoman thing, I don't know how healthy that really is.
Yeah, you hit a wall eventually, We're all human and we need that time to be able to just be, human beings, not human doings. And it's tough, right? I feel you being entrepreneur and having goals and I get caught in the same thing of like feeling the need to be productive and move and go. And sometimes what's even more challenging for me, I identify someone who can do hard things. And sometimes the hard thing for me is to pause, be still and rest. And so I challenge myself to do that instead. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So, what is number 5?
Number 5. So eating 1,200 calories a day will get me to my dream body. And this is one that I also do nutrition coaching as well, and a lot of online coaching, and something that I have to tackle with a lot of my female clients in particular. I get clients and I have them start tracking for 2 weeks to see what their baseline is, and they're eating 1,100, 1,200 calories a day. And they're like, Mackenzie, I just don't know why I can't lose this body fat or I can't get to the body that I want to be at. And I look at their calories and I'm like, your body is surviving. It is not thriving. So when you're eating 1,200 calories a day, your body is basically going to say, okay, what are some processes that we have physiologically that are not necessary, that are just kind of nice to have? One, menstruation. Us menstruating, reproducing is a nice to have. It's not something that we have to have in order to survive. And so that's why I see a lot of females with low body fat percentage under eating. They don't have menstruation, they cannot conceive. And so that is one area to look at. Your hormones are going to be completely crashed from this. Your cortisol is going to be constantly elevated, which is, I'm sure I know you mentioned cortisol. That is not a way to live, and it can actually have really severe health outcomes down the line. You are going to have nutrient deficiencies. If you're eating this low, I can guarantee you're not getting enough vitamin D, you're not getting enough fiber, you're not getting enough protein. We want to aim for 1 gram of protein per pound of target body weight. There's no way you're getting that with 1,200 calories. You're going to lose muscle, your body's going to shut down. And then what happens is they go on vacation. They go on vacation, a bachelorette trip. They go on a family birthday getaway. They eat slightly over what they're used to of 1,200 calories. Their body, they gain weight like that. What's happening is their body is holding on to that extra calories as an insurance policy for the next time they go into that starvation mode, which is what you're in if you're eating 1,200 calories a day. So your body's going to hold on to that. And that's why they never get to the body that they want, because they're in this vicious cycle of under eating. Their body and their hormone profile cannot set them up to thrive. And their body holds on to it because it's like, oh my gosh, we're starving. We need nutrients. So she's giving us a little extra. We're going to hold on to that. So eating that little is not the way to go. It may work for a short period, but then I can absolutely guarantee you 100% that you're going to hit a wall. You're going to come to me. You're going to feel lethargic. Your libido is going to be down. Your relationships with others, with yourself, it's all going to be impacted. So it's not a way to live, and there's a better way to do it. There's an easier way to do it. There's a more enjoyable way to do it, and that's what I help people with. But yeah, it's not going to get you to your dream body.
And I would like to add an addendum to that because it is really all about what you put in your mouth, not so much the calories, but the nutritive content. There are some foods that we're eating that aren't nutrient dense. They might they're low in calories and they're not nutrient dense, or they're high in calories and they're not nutrient dense. So eating things that are nutrient dense really takes the body a long ways in terms of being able to build muscle, be able to have energy, all of that. It's not just about the calorie counting. Let me ask you this. What are your thoughts about intermittent fasting?
This is a hot topic. So I would say that there are two applications where intermittent fasting makes sense. Number one, if you're doing it for moral or religious reasons, I understand the value of that and the value of having something bigger than yourself. And I absolutely applaud that. Number two, someone who has a sense of orthorexia, or maybe someone who, let's say, they've always been, this is especially prevalent with males, they're a hard gainer. It's hard for them to gain weight or to gain muscle, and they feel the need to always eat, and they have a poor relationship with that. It may be good to actually take a step back and to say, okay, I'm going to fast. I'm not going to focus on this so much and see how that makes me feel. A third one that I actually am going to throw in there, people with gut issues, because our gut needs some time to sweep through and to fully cleanse things. A lot of times, fasting can help figure out what foods are maybe triggering some bloating, irritation, inflammation. So, with gut issues and gut issue protocols, sometimes fasting can be helpful. The thing I don't love fasting for is if people are doing it for weight loss reasons, because if you, for example, are trying to lose weight, let's say you're a female 40s and you have been trying to lose weight for 5 years now, and you're like, okay, my friend did intermittent fasting, she lost weight. Remember what we said about weight versus body fat, different. She lost weight, I'm going to try this. So let's say you give yourself a window of 4 to 8 hours to eat. Now you have 4 to 8 hours to hit your 1 gram of protein per pound of target body weight. It is going to be very hard. It's hard enough to hit protein when you have 3, 4, 5 meals spread throughout the day. Imagine having it in that condensed period. A lot of times people have digestive issues eating more than like 50 grams of protein, depending on the person. It makes it that much harder to reach your target goals. So that's where I don't love intermittent fasting when it's used for weight loss. I think there are applications, like I mentioned, where it makes sense, but if it's for weight loss, there are way better ways to do it.
We're on the same page with that. And the other thing is that if you do decide to do intermittent fasting, I hope you do it with the help of someone who is an expert in eating patterns and nutrition and all of that, and knows you and where you are hormonally and everything else, because you can really screw yourself up not knowing what to do when it comes to intermittent fasting. I've seen some nightmares. I've seen some people who call themselves intermittent fasting for like 6 months. You know, whoo, their metabolism is all screwed up. And, it's just not the best thing to do without going into it with an education and your why. What is your why? And I'm glad you
Yeah.
went to the religious thing, because there are some people who do that. But to do intermittent fasting just for weight loss, your results, if you get results, they're not going to last. It's been my experience when it comes to the whole weight loss thing, that it took a while in most cases to get like that. It takes a little while for you to lose it. Anything that's the overnight thing, which brings me to something else that wasn't on your top five, but
Yeah.
I ask you because everybody's talking about it. What do you think about the GLP-1?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And overall, I think when they're used at the appropriate dosage for the right person, they can be amazing. I've heard amazing stories about what GLP-1s have done for people. I'm actually part of a trainer group, and these are the things we talk about, right? Because GLP-1s came to the industry and we're like, oh my gosh, we're all going to lose our jobs. Like, people are going to just lose weight. Actually, the need for trainers has actually heightened because of the under muscle issue that GLP-1s can cause. Overall, when used appropriately, they're amazing. They cut down food noise. People who have really poor relationship with food in the past, they cannot shut it off. It is amazing for that. It rewires hedonistic reward system. So instead of craving alcohol, cigarettes, a lot of times people completely drop those. I think it can be amazing. It's amazing for people who need that door opened for them to take that first step, and then they build momentum and they get healthy habits from that. So I think it can be a really great thing for the right people. With that being said, do I think it's overprescribed? Absolutely. I do not think it's for, let's go back to that woman in her 40s who, they have extra 5-10 pounds of stubborn belly fat to lose. Do I think that's for them? Absolutely not. You know why? Because you're going to take this GLP-1. It's going to subdue your hunger signals. You're going to be eating 1,000, 1,100, 1,200 calories a day. Your hormones are going to be dysregulated. Your body's eventually going to adapt so that you no longer lose weight at 1,100, 1,200 calories. So then you have to drop your calories again. Now we're at 800 calories. Your body's going to adapt. You then have to drop it down again to lose weight. You're now at 500 calories. Eventually you die, right? That's just not a sustainable way to live. So I think they're way overprescribed, and I wish we had more due diligence with who these go to, because they can be really powerful for people, but
There's
it's
all these sites that are out there, and you fill out this information, and of course, at the end of the information that you fill out, you qualify no matter what, almost no matter what. I mean, it's very scary. And, we'll see what's going on in another 10, 15 years, because they're using this in a way they haven't used it before, because it was for diabetics. And now people are using it who are non-diabetic. So we'll see. The only thing that I've noticed that's very interesting is that I can pretty much tell when someone is on it. There's a look. Some people call it the Ozempic face. I definitely see it, because you never know where you're going to lose the fat. But a lot of times when people lose weight, they begin to lose it in their face. There's just the fat in their face, which you think you want to lose that, but not necessarily, because the opposite of that is a kind of a gaunt look that
yeah.
ages you. And some people think that because I'm going to lose this weight, I'll look younger, and maybe their body will look thinner, but their face is like, what's going on?
Yeah. No, and exactly. You hit it nail on the head. A lot of times these people are losing muscle pretty rapidly, which is scary. Like, when you're losing a third of your body weight, which is a whole human for a lot of people, you're absolutely losing muscle. So you're destroying your basal metabolic rate. You're putting yourself in a place where it's going to be harder to lose weight. If you are to take these and you're like, I'm gung ho about taking these, absolutely hire nutritionist, personal trainer, coach. Make sure that you have people who can support you and guide you on that journey, because there are ways to do it properly where you can minimize muscle loss, where you can enact certain training protocols to keep sending the signal to build muscle, maintain muscle, eating protein, prioritizing that so that you can do it properly so you're not in a worse off spot. Because that's my biggest fear, is these people get on it.
That's my
And it's
biggest
the
concern
initial.
too. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
if you don't change your lifestyle to match this new thing that's happening,
Mhm.
it's going to come right back anyway. But I can tell you a very, very famous person who I know has done this. And she was in Europe. and they were taking pictures of her walking to her car or whatever, and they're like, what is going on with her gait? Is she sick or whatever? Like, no, she's probably not sick, as a GLP-1. I don't know, I'm sure she has trainers and nutritionists and everything else, but this is my concern, to take it after 65, after 66, 60, 70, to take it right around that time. What's the impact in terms of balance and gait and all that kind of stuff? Because both she and her friend, and they're still wearing heels and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, this, and there were so many people noticing it that they came out with a statement about, she was tired, or her ankle or her shoes or something. I said, no, girl, that's not what it was. You know, we get, and I can say this because I am 68 and I used to wear heels all the time. If I wanted to force it, I guess I could use the heels, but I don't want to hurt my ankles. I don't want to get shin issues going on. I don't want to fall,
Yeah.
any of that. And I don't know what the GLP-1 does with brittle bone, how that impacts your vitamin D3, K2,
Yeah.
if it's being absorbed. All those things I don't know, and I haven't seen any studies about that. But those are the things that I worry about as we get older. I really am a lifestyle change guru. I really believe that. It just doesn't give people the results instantaneously. You know how we are. We're a microwave generation. Everything.
Yeah. Instant dopamine hit. Yeah, no, I love what you covered. And yeah, when you're on GLP-1s, you're under eating. And going back to what we talked about previously, when you're under eating, you're going to have nutrient deficiencies. You're going to have energy issues, brain fog. You're also going to be under muscled. You will lose muscle when you're on a GLP-1. It's about minimizing muscle loss with GLP-1s. And so when you lose muscle, you're losing your longevity organ. Your balance is going to be worse off. You could have bone density issues as well. So when you fall, it could be more severe results from that. So yeah, you're losing your longevity organ and you're losing your vitality, which is so important. And so yeah, you have to be aware of what you're going into when you do it.
Absolutely agree. Well, Mackenzie, you are wonderful and full of great information and positive energy, as all fitness people are. Most fitness people I know are like that. I think that's because
Yeah.
all your happy hormones are going all the time.
Yes.
Working out all the time.
Yeah. Yes, no, totally. That's a secret, right?
That's right. But thank you so much for being here. And I know you do have online classes as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I do online coaching. So I help people through workouts, through nutrition, mindset, habits. Yes, I do all of that.
Okay, and all those links are there on our show page. Her social media, her website is there, and I also see that you have a giveaway, a download that we have also on the show page. A free guide. It's a curated collection of downloadable guides that can help you build muscle, help you with your mobility, help with pain relief. A plethora of information for free that she's offering you. I highly suggest that if you're trying to figure out what to do, and you're not sure what to do, take a look at Mackenzie. She really knows her stuff, as you can tell with our conversation today. Mackenzie, thank you so much for being on the Vibe Living podcast. It's been wonderful to see you here today.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
And thank you to all of you. I really appreciate it. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. And also don't forget to take a look at all the other wonderful topics that we cover on the Vibe Living podcast. My goal, as you know, is to give you information that's going to help you be more vibrant, more intuitive, more beautiful, and empowered in midlife. Thanks so much for vibing with us. Have a fantastic day. And don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.